Hey friends, Tao here. It's Kentucky Derby time, and we are ready to celebrate with a special collection of Kentucky flavors like bourbon ball, mint julep, and more. This limited edition collection will ship nationwide on goldbelly.com from April 24th through May 6th, Derby Day. That's goldbelly.com. As much as we like to think we're very rational in our decision making, all of us are prone to allowing our emotions to guide our actions and decisions. There are 10 million bazillion different types of candles, cars, computers, ice cream. Sure, there are some features of this myriad of items that stand out among the rest, but often what it really comes down to is how that thing makes us feel. That's why brand is so important to any business. It's how we connect with our customers to allow them to emotionally experience our products before they actually try them. Building a strong brand is essential for any business in today's very crowded marketplace. Your brand is much more than just a logo or a name or your colors. It's a way that people perceive your business and the values that it represents. A strong brand can help you attract new customers, build loyalty and trust, and ultimately drive sales and revenue. So, when you're a new company, you get excited when someone other than your friends actually buy your stuff, right? In the beginning, it's your family and your friends who come and support you, but then strangers start showing up and suddenly it grows and it reaches more people and more people. Our business has been around for 10 years now. And one of my favorite stories that really made me feel like this is really reaching some people was somebody told me a story that they were sitting at our tiny Lexington airport waiting to get on a plane. And somebody had mentioned that they were looking for fun places to go. And this other person who was sitting next to them said, "Oh, well, you have to go to Crank and Boom if you're here in Lexington." And the other person who was seeking the advice said, "Oh, do you live here?" And the other person said, "Oh no, I live in Florida, but you just definitely need to go to Crank and Boom." And it really struck me that someone who doesn't even live here is giving advice to people in the airport about needing to come to our shop. This little ice cream company that we've built over all these years has been able to have the reach that it has across the nation, being able to ship nationwide, being able to be a part of people's lives in a way that I probably can't even imagine. One of the most asked questions that I get for people who are not as familiar with our story is, how did you come up with the name? And I always give two versions of the story. The quick version is Crank is the old-fashioned way of making ice cream, and Boom is the flavor. So if you are eating bourbon and honey ice cream, we want to boom in your face, have bourbon flavor and honey flavor where you really intensely taste those flavors. And it must be my Thai cooking background where I just want in your face flavor. So that's why we want the boom in the flavor. So we worked with a local company that was helping us with branding and colors, and I actually submitted a whole list of names and I will share with you. So Cozy Cone, Cone and Cool, the Karma Cream. I stuck on Karma Creamery for a long time, like Karma Creamery with K. Batch and Green Batch Creamery. So it's this, basically this Word doc that just has a bazillion ideas. And then Crank and Boom was at the very tail end of my submission. Here's the real story behind the name. So my roommate in college, her name is Katie Rankin, and she's still one of my very best friends today. Her nickname when I met her was Crankin, K Rankin, because that's how all our emails were. It was the first letter of your first name plus your last name. So we called her Crankin. That was her nickname. She married a guy named Brendan Bauma, and his nickname before they met was Boom. And so their couple name is Crankin' Boom. And so when they got together and they said our couple name is Crankin' Boom, and I thought that was just so cool. And so I just threw that in my submission to the branding company. And, they came back with some options, and Crankin' Boom was one of them. And I ultimately picked that because it just felt right. And it just felt like I have this connection to this name, and it feels fun and it feels different. And it just kind of rolls off the tongue. And I'm very nostalgic, so I like things that have deeper connections to other things. Hey friends, Tao here, popping in to share my excitement about one of my favorite companies in the whole world, Holly Hill & Co. If you are like me and are obsessed with food, especially local food, you will appreciate those special ties that happen around the table. Holly Hill & Co. believes, like I do, that food creates connection and community unlike anything else. That's why they take care to strengthen the ties across the generations between family, the farmer, and the land, all the way to the food that ends up on your table. You can experience exactly what this means at one of Holly Hill's 9 unique Central Kentucky restaurants and through their beautiful emails. If you're in Kentucky, be sure to find the nearest location and get ready for an amazing experience with the most fantastic food. Holly Hill's co-founder is none other than my dear friend, James Beard-nominated chef Weta Michael, who's been a force on the Kentucky food scene for over 20 years. Learn more about their incredible food community by visiting hollyhillandco.com, where you'll find stories, recipes, how-tos, and even curated gifts. Again, that's hollyhillandco.com, and let them know that Tao from Crankin' Boom sent you. Hey friends, we couldn't be more stoked to have another amazing partner as one of our lead sponsors for the Crankin' Boom podcast. I'm talking about none other than our friends at Goldbelly. If you haven't heard of Goldbelly, I am about to change your life because they are America's #1 food marketplace, and they ship the most famous, most regional, iconic foods from around the country right to your door. I honestly can't tell you how incredible it's been to work with these folks. We've been partnering with them since 2019, and since then, we have shipped our ice cream to all 50 states and Canada. What a fantastic way for our family business to reach a nationwide audience from our little corner of Kentucky. We're in pretty amazing company too, because they have everything from meal kits from top chefs like Nancy Silverton or Danny Meyer to local regional classics like Maine lobster rolls or Texas brisket. And again, it's all available to ship right to your door. Just talking about this makes me so very hungry. So if you haven't taken advantage of Goldbelly's amazing offers, now's the time. Run over to their website at goldbelly.com and make your foodie dreams come true. That's goldbelly.com, and be sure to add a collection or two of Crankin' Boom ice cream to your cart as well. So I mentioned that we used a branding company to help us build our brand, but it was definitely a big decision to do that. At the time, I knew that to be able to create what I wanted to create, I really wanted to have some really strong branding behind us. And my background is in marketing, so I knew branding was really important. And I knew that being consistent with your colors and things like that, and fonts and those things were important. I didn't want something that was with white walls and, bright kind of clown-like colors. And that's just a different ice cream aesthetic, and I'm not knocking those things. It's just not what I was wanting for our company. I love that I just basically gave them a picture of a brewery that is in Asheville and said, I need you to build me a brand around this picture. I love what they were able to create. I do want to emphasize that you do not need those things. You do not need to invest oodles and oodles of money into those pieces of the branding. There are a lot of tools out there now that can help you do those things for free. There are things like Canva and so many other tools online that you can get a logo for little, if not for free. So when you're starting out, you might be overwhelmed with all the options and do I need to have special tables that are branded for my colors? Do I need to have forks that are on brand? Do I need to have this and that? There's different ways you can go. You can spend all the money on anything that you want to show up however you want on the first day. But there's a lot of other ways that you can show up and still be successful. One of the greatest compliments that I received, and this was from our rep from the branding company. This was maybe a couple years after we had kicked off. We had basically suffocated the community with our purple tent and tried to show up at every single event that would have us and tried to get our ice cream in front of as many people as possible. And our friend said to us, you know how many people have come to us and said, we want you to do what you did for Crank and Boom. And he would tell them, yeah, we can do the branding, we can do the fonts, and we can do the logo, and we can do the colors. But Crank and Boom has shown up, and they have worked hard, and they have done all of that building behind those things. That was such a compliment to me and Mike, because everything we had built, being consistent with colors, showing up, having that logo. If we had shown up and say we didn't have our fancy purple tent, but we had a little poster board that had our flavors and we talked about who we were, over time, I think we would have still found success. I think all the things we did have definitely contributed to what we've done in terms of building the brand. But I ultimately think if you take pressure off yourself and know that you can still show up, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all these fancy things. If you show up, present a product that people like and people can use and solves a problem, then you can still find success. And it was always important that no matter where we showed up, wherever we showed up, whether we were a cart, whether we were doing samples, whether we were at a wedding, whether we are pints on a shelf, that we would show up in a way that made people feel seen, that made people feel respected, that made people feel like they were welcome. That's something we're always striving for. You know, we're not perfect. We don't get it right every time, but we're always striving for that. Those, to me, are the building blocks and the foundation of what I feel like is brand building. It's how you show up. And if you can do that and can do it consistently, everything else will fall into place. So what are some main takeaways after all this chat about branding, how we started our brand, how we've built our brand? I think there's probably 3 points that are really, really important when it comes to building a brand. One is be unapologetically you. Ultimately, this business is a representation of you. And if you are trying to be someone else, it won't work long term. You'll be miserable. You're going to spend all your time trying to be something that you're not. You should just be you. It should be an expression of your product, your business, that when you go to sell it, it means something and people will understand and feel that connection. It's going to make all the difference. I would say the other thing that's really important is the building of connections. Even if you are a solopreneur, you have to have connections, whether it's with people you are working with, either vendors or suppliers or customers. You will still have to have some sort of connection with other people. And I think it's so important to build those connections and find a way to connect with people. That, I think, is such an important tool to have when you're trying to build your brand and trying to build what does it look like when you show up into the world. Probably the most important thing with building a brand is consistency, because if you are consistently doing something that is maybe not the best, that's what people are going to associate with your brand. When we were working just in our tent, we always committed to the festival times. Whatever time we are contracted to be there, we are going to be there, rain, shine, or anything. And I think that's what really made our tent and our booth stand out from a lot of other places, was because we built those connections with those organizers for those events. And they knew if they were going to bring us here, that we were not going to run out of product. We were going to stay to the very end, no matter what the customer count was, and that we would be nice people to work with. Brand building is very multi-layered, but I think if you stick to these 3 things, be you, stay consistent, build connections, you're going to be set for building the brand of your dreams. Thank you so much for listening to the Crank and Boom podcast. If you want business advice and tactics like this every week, click that follow button on our show wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, if you liked what you heard today, I would love it so much if you would leave us a review. That helps other people find us too, and I would love to hear more about what you'd like us to be talking about on the podcast. Can't wait to meet you here again soon. Until next time, peace.
This is a production of Four Eyes Media.